to CIA Declassified. We are entering into the late 1960s and early 1970s. Southeast Asia is a powder keg. While the world's attention is fixed on the jungles of Vietnam, a quieter, perhaps more vital struggle is occurring in the littoral zones, the ports. In cities like Singapore, Bangkok, and Jakarta, the docks are the lifeblood of the economy and the gateway for ideology. The agency realized that to control the region, they had to understand the unrest of the waterside. This necessitated a specialized intelligence gathering operation that bypassed traditional diplomatic channels. This was the era of JGPAIN. It wasn't about flashy sabotage. It was about the meticulous, grueling work of tracking labor unions, shipping manifests, and the political leanings of the men who moved the world's cargo. Why the designation JGPAIN? The internal logic of the agency's naming conventions often points to a specific administrative origin. The reason for the name follows the CIA's diagraph system for Southeast Asia and specific intelligence disciplines. The prefix JG was the diagraph assigned to a subset of operations involving maritime intelligence and regional political surveillance in the Pacific theater. The term pain was the randomized, yet ironically appropriate, word assigned to this specific surveillance project. In the ledger books of Langley, it simply identified the painstaking monitoring of port city stability. The reality of JGPAIN was a mixture of dockside bribery and high-level statistical analysis. Let's intermix the facts with the voices of those who walked the piers. JGPAIN was established to provide early warning indicators of communist infiltration in merchant marine unions. A quote from a declassified 1968 cable set. "If the cranes stop moving in Singapore, the revolution has already begun." End quote. The agency utilized asset handlers posing as shipping insurance adjusters to gain access to restricted port areas. Records show the DPD monitored the movement of dual-use cargo that could be used for insurgent activities. A quote from a declassified operative field log, "Our best sources weren't the generals, they were the foremen who knew who was attending the midnight meetings." End quote. The project mapped the social architecture of the Singapore waterfront to identify potential agitation points. Logs prove the CIA coordinated with local special branch units to track the travel patterns of radical union leaders. A quote from a declassified analyst paper, "The port is a mirror. It shows you the health of the state before the state even knows it's sick." End quote. The agency utilized a network of front companies in the maritime logistics sector to fund the operation. Records show the operation was instrumental in predicting the 1971 labor strikes that threatened regional stability. A quote from a declassified field report, "We didn't just watch the ships, we watched the shadows the ships cast on the men on the dock." End quote. The project cost millions in discretionary payments to port authorities to overlook the installation of surveillance equipment. Documents reveal the CIA used acoustic monitoring in harbors to identify the unique signatures of foreign cargo vessels. The agency influenced local editorial content in maritime trade journals to discourage pro-communist sentiment. A quote from a declassified and redacted retired handler, "It was a war of spreadsheets and informants played out over cheap beer in dockside bars." End quote. Sounds like a good time, doesn't it? Logs show that JGPAIN provided the statistical backbone for the agency's Regional Stability Index. The agency sent undercover economic analysts to evaluate the impact of port disruptions on U.S. supply chains. Records prove the CIA provided security consultation to major shipping lines to help them weed out subversive elements. The DPD utilized technical observation posts disguised as standard shipping containers. A quote from a declassified internal training memo, "The crate has eyes, the crane has ears, and the agency has the manifest." End quote. Operatives tracked the arrival of Soviet-manufactured small arms disguised as industrial machinery parts in Jakarta. Cables indicate the use of specialized 35mm cameras concealed within surveyor equipment to document dock workers. A quote from a declassified technical directive, "The goal is total situational awareness of the offloading process." End quote. Documentation proves the agency manipulated the price of local stevedoring contracts to favor pro-Western unions. The project identified a major transshipment point for illicit propaganda in the port of Keelung. Reports confirm the CIA paid spotter fees to tugboat captains to report on any cargo handled after sunset. A quote from a declassified field report, "Night is when the real history of the harbor is written." End quote. The operation established a secure courier route for intelligence during civilian fishing trawlers, using civilian fishing trawlers as cover. Analysis shows that JGPAIN successfully identified the exact warehouse used by insurgents to store tactical radios. A quote from a declassified project report, "Information is the only cargo that doesn't require a customs stamp." End quote. The agency deployed microtransmitters on buoy markers to monitor vessel speed and proximity to sensitive docks. Records show the CIA infiltrated the clerical staff of the Singaporean Port Authority. Data collection included the monitoring of wharfside rumors to gauge the morale of the local police force. The DDP utilized invisible ink coding on shipping manifests to track the internal movement of high-value assets. A quote from a declassified operational memo, "We are the invisible auditors of the Pacific." End quote. Logs confirm the seizure of over 50,000 pages of subversive documents based on JGPAIN intelligence. The project mapped the ventilation systems of underground storage bunkers in Manila. A quote from a declassified and redacted tactical officer's field report, "Knowing where the air goes tells you where the people are hiding." End quote. Records show the operation successfully intercepted a secret communication between a port union and the North Vietnamese government. The agency provided non-lethal disruption tools to port security to handle protesters without creating martyrs. Evidence suggests the CIA used chemical tracers on fuel shipments to identify the secret supply depots of rebel groups. Operatives used sub-miniature microphones hidden in fake dock-piling barnacles to capture union organizer conversations. The project monitored the lead time of bulk grain shipments to predict impending military mobilizations in the region. A quote from a declassified field manual, "If they're stockpiling rice at the naval pier, someone's going to cross a border." End quote. Logs prove the CIA used counter-union leafleting campaigns dropped from unmarked civilian aircraft near the harbors. The agency established a secret training facility in the Philippines for pro-Western dock worker enforcers. Records show the CIA utilized infrared beacons on the roofs of safe houses to guide nighttime maritime insertions. A quote from a declassified internal logistics report, "The lighthouse tells the truth, but the beacon tells the story." Documentation reveals the CIA intercepted over 200 coded maritime radio transmissions using a relay station in Guam. The files of JGPAIN are notoriously sparse in the most critical areas. The heaviest redactions, totaling roughly 280 pages, occur in the Liaison with Local Triads section. The official reason for the redaction is statutory exemption B1, citing the protection of intelligence sources and methods and the prevention of damage to sensitive foreign relations with Southeast Asian governments. Then there's the opium logistics conspiracy. Rumors have circulated for decades that the 280 pages hide a quid pro quo involving the Golden Triangle. Speculators believe the agency wasn't just watching the ports, but was actively facilitating the shipment of illicit substances in exchange for the Triad's help in suppressing communist labor unions. The theory is that the redactions protect the specific shipping routes of convenience used to fund the operation off the books. Then there's the sabotage of competition theory. A more cynical line of speculation suggests the blacked out pages contain orders for the artificial destabilization of ports that competed with American-aligned shipping interest. This theory posits that JGPAIN used dirty tricks to incite strikes in rival cities, ensuring that the friendly ports remained the dominant hub of the Pacific. There is also the human trafficking evaluation speculation. Fringe theorists point to the redactions in the cargo manifest files. They speculate that the agency was actually monitoring experimental human transfers to see how easily personnel could be moved across borders without detection. According to this speculation, the blacked out pages detail the results of stress testing the world's shipping lanes using unwitting test subjects moved in specialized containers. Then there's the submerged facility rumor. Among the deep dive researchers, there is a theory that the redacted pages contain coordinates for underwater listening stations built directly into the harbor floor. This speculation holds that the CIA used the cover of port construction to install permanent nuclear-powered acoustic sensors that are still active today. It is theorized that the redactions protect the location of these multi-billion-dollar assets that continue to monitor the silent movement of the world's submarine fleets. And lastly, there is the climate engineering theory. It's newer and more controversial, and it's emerged regarding the weather observation logs within the declassified files. Speculators suggest the agency used the ports as staging grounds for early geoengineering experiments. The theory claims the CIA seeded the clouds over specific Asian harbors to induce flooding, artificially slowing down enemy logistics while testing the viability of weather warfare in tropical climates. Was JGPAIN a success? Tactically, it was a statistical triumph. It provided the agency with a granular understanding of port dynamics that was previously impossible. Strategically, it was an essential buffer. It allowed the U.S. to anticipate and mitigate disruptions that could have crippled the regional economy during the Cold War. Ultimately, it was a success because it proved that intelligence gathered at the blue-collar level was more predictive of political change than high-level diplomatic cables. The project successfully neutralized dozens of potential strikes before they could paralyze shipping lanes. It succeeded in establishing a perpetual surveillance framework that the agency still uses today in major global transit hubs. The failure to prevent every local riot was overshadowed by the success in keeping the big cranes moving throughout the crisis years. It effectively turned the merchant marine into an unofficial wing of the intelligence community, a success that ensured the free flow of commerce remained an American-led enterprise. The operation's longevity and the fact that its core methodologies were integrated into global port security protocols are the ultimate markers of its success. It proved that in the game of nations, he who controls the dock controls the clock of the revolution. The success of JGPAIN is measured in the absence of a catastrophic supply chain collapse during the 1970s. By effectively turning every crate into a potential sensor, the agency achieved a level of economic oversight that became the blueprint for modern trade surveillance. This operation didn't just win a moment. It won a methodology that redefined how empires monitor the movement of the world's wealth. As far as operational and technological breakthroughs go, JGPAIN resulted in breakthroughs that define modern maritime security, such as predictive labor analytics, the technique of analyzing union grievances and social media nowadays to predict industrial action. Today, this is used in supply chain risk management to reroute global shipping before a strike occurs. Maritime acoustic signature cataloging, the creation of a database to identify specific ships by their underwater sound. This technology is the foundation of modern sonar signature recognition used by the Navy to track every vessel on the ocean. Logistics infiltration protocols, the operational method of placing intelligence assets within civilian logistics chains. This is used today by the Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism to secure global trade routes. Literal social mapping, the ability to map the political and social connections of portside communities. This breakthrough is used today in human geography analysis to understand how information and influence spread in high-density urban environments. JGPAIN reminds us that the world's economy rests on the shoulders of the men and women who work in the shadows of the massive cranes. The project proved that the most important intelligence isn't found in a palace but on a packing slip. We are still living in the world of the Harbor Watch, where every container is a data point and every port is a pulse. The grandmasters of the 1970s taught us that if you want to understand the future, you have to watch the tide. Their legacy is the silent automated monitoring of our global arteries, a system that ensures the world keeps spinning even when the ground beneath us is shaking. Every time a ship enters a harbor, the ghost of JGPAIN is there, checking the manifest and watching the shadows. The water may look calm, but beneath the surface, the watch never ends and the tides never lie. We have inherited a world where the harbor is a fortress of data, guarded by the lessons learned in the sweaty neon heat of the 70s waterfront. The lines between commerce and surveillance have been blurred until they are one and the same. The cranes are the silent sentinels of a peace bought with secrets and sweat. The ocean remembers the names of the ships, but the agency remembers the names of the men on the pier. Thanks for listening. Keep your ears to the ground and your eyes on the horizon. And remember, the tide always brings something back. Join us next time as we examine J.M. Big. In the theaters of large-scale conflict, the agency didn't just advise. They orchestrated the heavy metal of war. We'll uncover the facts behind J.M. Big, the operations involving heavy weaponry and large-scale paramilitary maneuvers. It was a war of iron and impact. Join us next time for The Heavy Hammer. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.